Mary and Bree, and welcome to Mom Talks with, oh my heck, you guys. Let me just say, do you know how many times we've tried to record this podcast? We are on time number 4, and none of my words are working. So we're just going to start that over again because here's real life. Welcome to Single Mom Talks with Mary and Bree. What are we talking about today, Bree?
Like this exact thing that you just brought forward. Like when everything seems to be going wrong, what do you do? Right? Like what is your normal response? Yeah! Like most people, they come up with excuses. They come up with, I can't do this. I don't have enough time. There's like, well, I gave it my all, right? Like they come up with this excuse. Oh, I gave it my all. I tried. But the true heart of a champion, the true heart of like what we as single moms must have is this piece of persistence, this piece of relentlessness. I will not quit until I succeed. No matter how hard it gets, no matter what is thrown at me, no matter the fear that comes up, no matter when technology doesn't work, like whatever it may be, like you just keep pushing forward.
Because if it's right now, if it was right when you decided, it's right now. There is a big difference between like normal resistance and opposition coming up and actually being redirected to go another direction. Because if you're redirected to go another direction off of where you've been, you're going to feel peace and calm and decisiveness and rootedness going that direction. But if it is just like noise and resistance and your own fears or whatever it is, that feels completely different than being redirected. So if it was right then, it's right now. Unless you're receiving a clear direction to change course, you just keep going. We've had to change. We've done so many things to get this thing working today. And yes, I love what you said about the heart of a champion. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so true. Like exactly with what you were saying too, with that aspect of how do you know the difference between like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm just hitting these roadblocks and it's fear and it's, you know, just that resistance, kind of like what you were talking about before with those weights, right? With weight training. But like, how do you know if it's just the resistance and fear and things like that you need to push through versus, no, I need to redirect myself and go a different direction? Do you want to dive into that?
Yeah. So on one of our previous recordings, we were talking about resistance when it comes to muscles. So you know the difference between pushing your muscles to where they're burning and they hurt and maybe you can barely get that weight up, and the pain that's associated with that and the pain that's associated with a torn muscle. And it's the same thing here is I've totally lost my train of thought.
Dude! Oh my God.
This is a new skill, you guys. This is a new skill that Bree and I are practicing here. And does that mean when I have these little moments where I'm like, oh, I can't remember what I was saying, the technology isn't working, does that mean you stop? No, it doesn't mean you stop. It means that you get to be okay with sucking. You get to be okay with looking like a beginner. And that's what being humble actually looks like. Sean Whalen actually replied to some comment on a Facebook post or something recently where a girl asked a really great question. She was like, I get in the room with these people that are farther ahead of me than I am, and I turn into a different person. Like I stand more straight. I do all these things. I do these things better. And then all of a sudden, all the questions maybe that I had kind of leave my mind and whatever, but then I leave and I'm like, well, then how do I move forward? And his answer to her was, what you're lacking is humility. Is go in there, don't pretend like you are farther ahead than you are. Just be where you are and be okay with where you are. So like us being okay with where we are on this podcast and getting it started and getting the tech working and all of those things, wherever it is that you are, be okay with where you are while you are making those 1% shifts to get you where you want to be. And don't let that turn into, I can't do it because I can't figure it out. No, like go to somebody who's done it before you and figure it out from them. And one of the topics that we brought up on one of the other episodes that we recorded was the thing that we see a lot where people say, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to work on myself. I don't have time to take a nap. I don't have time for all of those things. And as a single mom, just coming from our perspective here, we have had to get creative in order to survive. So that means we've had to let go of a lot of things. We have to say no to a lot of things. We've had to step into trust for our children, with ourselves, and with God at this whole new level, because we didn't have another choice. But the cool thing is we also see other people who have done it too that aren't in the same position. So it's just a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so good. You said a couple things that just like made my body just like, like, you know, you talked about like letting go of that shame of being a beginner. Because we all get in this stance or this fear of like, well, what if people see me and I suck at this? And then we're like, they're going to make fun of us, or, you know, they're going to think this or this or this. But you know what? Every single person who is the best in their field, they had to suck. But they chose to push through the suck and chose to keep putting in that work for it to become a passion. Like, it wasn't until they built that skill of consistency that they actually built what they are excited about now. And you're going to have days where you're like, why am I doing this again? Like, but you have to go back to your original inspiration. What did you feel led to do and why? And what is your why? If your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. If your why doesn't push you through these moments of technology issues, being bad at what you're trying at first, things like that, you will not be able to stick to it. It's just part of the facts, because your why has to be strong enough to push you through those moments when the hard times come. When you're like, why am I doing this? And you're like, oh, that's right. I want to provide better experiences for my family. I want to serve these people that I like, my ideal clients. I want to be there for them. I want to help them push through these things that I've already worked through. And you have to build that vision. And also, like, it's okay. Again, it's okay to suck. It's okay to be bad at these things. It's okay to be like, man, you remember, like, I look back on some of my past videos and I cringe a little bit inside, because I'm like, wow, you know, but I look at it and at the same time I have this sense of humility, and also this sense of like, I'm so glad that that version of myself chose to keep going, even though it sucked and I was terrible at it, you know? And the other thing that I thought of, and I think of our coach April, I think this actually may have come from her. She talks about burning the boats, right? Like that concept of like, when you say you're going to do something, you don't give yourself an escape to be able to go back. When you get to that island and you're like, okay, I have to do this. Like, so many people, they leave their boats on the shore just in case they want to escape and not stay consistent with what they chose to do. And then that's where the excuses come in, right? And they're like, well, I guess, you know, it is what it is. But honestly, if you burn the boats and you give yourself no other choice but to succeed, oh my gosh, like that's where the power really starts to come in. You know, you talk about discipline and motivation. Motivation doesn't come until you get that ball rolling and you're like going with the discipline. It doesn't come until after the discipline has already been established.
Well, that makes me think, I've never thought of it this way before, but like, I wonder if motivation really is just excitement, you know? And we have these little moments of being excited to do something. And then a lot of times it's at the beginning of doing something and we're excited to do it. And then, oh shoot, like tech issues happen, or this happens, that falls through. And oh my gosh, there were 9 million hurdles to get to this one from A to B. Like there was a million little A, B, C, D, whatever between the A and the B. And it looked like it was going to be simple. And so like the excitement kind of dies down. But I wonder if when you are disciplined enough and your why is deep enough and you understand it enough, I think that's where maybe motivation comes in. But motivation maybe is just excitement. And you are excited to wake up and take on whatever is happening. You're excited to do what it is you're doing. And if you're not excited about doing what you're doing, like stop and take a minute and look at it and evaluate why that is. Is that because you need a perspective shift? Is that because you need to be doing things different? Is that because Brie and I have been talking about this in the background too, like just different business things and what works for her in her life and what works for me and my life in my life, and all of these different little things. Like, if what you're doing isn't working, what can you do to change that? And like, there's nothing that says you have to do it the same way as anybody else. There's nothing that says you have to do it the same way you did it yesterday. It took me, I laugh at myself. It took me all summer to figure out like some sort of exercise routine and what worked for me and what didn't. And it took me all summer to realize, oh, I really do like working out better at night for all of these different reasons, and how to like, just how to navigate all of that. And I would change it sometimes weekly and sometimes a couple times a week. And so it took me all summer, but now I will know going into the future, I will know myself better. And so, and actually that makes me think, okay, we all have the same amount of hours in the day. Use your time wisely. So it took me all summer to figure out my routine, but it was freaking worth it, because I need to be able to figure out myself and what works for me so I can figure out how to show up better as a mom, how to show up better as a provider, how to show up better in whatever relationship that I have, whether it's friends or anybody else.
That is so powerful. I think too, you put in that aspect of like being patient with yourself. Like, it's okay if you're like realizing, oh, I'm wasting so much time doing these other things here, or I need to shift this around here so I can get the most out of my time, and reevaluating what is most important for you. Like, you're like, oh, it works better for me to work out at night. For me, it's like, oh, it works better if I get all of my business stuff done first thing in the morning, like just getting it done and getting that under my belt, and all the things that I want to avoid, getting those things done first so that they're not on my mind and taking up that mental energy and space of, oh, I should be doing that. Oh, I should have done that like 5 months ago, but I still haven't done it because I've been like waiting for the right time. It just, if you just get it done and decide what you're going to do, like it eliminates all that space. Yeah.
It's like eating the frog. Eat the frog. What do you need to do first thing in the morning? And Brie and I have both kind of discovered that doing business stuff first thing in the morning is what we need to get done first. And sometimes it takes time to figure that stuff out. So if I'm hearing from you that you don't even have time to take a nap during the day, then something needs to shift. Something in your world has got to give somewhere, because if you're burned out and your health is crashing, you can't do or be anything to anybody else, no matter how much you want to. So sometimes that means trusting our kids a little bit more. Sometimes that means trusting Heavenly Father with our kids a little bit more. Whatever that is, it's just an excuse when we say we don't have time. Because if it's something that doesn't actually matter. It's maybe something that doesn't actually need to happen in your time, in your day. But I would argue that certain things like health, whatever that looks like to you, that has to be a priority. Again, because if you don't have your health, then how can you show up for anybody else? And if you're a single mom, you are the end all be all. You are the person. You are the one that you have to rely on. You don't have a spouse in your house to, when they get home, honey, I need 10 minutes. I need 20 minutes. You've got the kids. Yeah. I've got to go over here. You don't have that. So you have to figure out a way to make that happen for yourself with what you've got. And some of you moms don't have even an ex-spouse in the picture at all. Some of you are full-time moms. And it is amazing what can happen when you get pushed into that corner and you have to figure things out. But if you're somebody listening to this podcast and you are married, know that if it's possible over here, it's possible for you too.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, yes. And as I was listening to you, I thought of the term non-negotiable. Non-negotiable, like taking care of yourself, whether you are married or single or whatever, it has to become a non-negotiable, because like you were saying, how good are you if you are having poor health and you're exhausted and you're not fully functioning as a human being? Like, you can't provide and do the work that you've been sent here to do. You can't show up powerfully in your space if you are exhausted. And I can't help but, like, I'm going to bring in some religious, like, aspects to this as well. Like, if the adversary knows, like, okay, the adversary doesn't have a body, right? Like, of course, like, it's gonna be attacked. And so if the adversary can attack your health and keep you distracted by, like, oh, that needs to become last, or it's not important, or it's selfish, or putting in these seeds of doubt, you're gonna put that last, and then you're gonna be burnt out, and then you're gonna be like, I don't have any earthly idea how I'm supposed to accomplish this vision or believe that anything else is possible. When you are taking care of your body, you actually start to feel better. You actually start to dream again. You actually start to, like, realize that maybe I can provide for my family. I can do this thing that I've been called to do. I can push this vision forward, because you're not exhausted all the time. Like, it is of utmost importance that you take care of your body in the best way that you possibly can.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember where I've heard it, but there's this little adage that goes, I exercise so I do have the energy to do such and such over here. So even if that's, even if you work some sort of physical job, you exercise so you can do that physical job. Because that, and it's a discipline level too, you know, you're showing up for yourself and all those things, but you are, that's like your maintenance stuff to help you have the strength to do the other things you need to do in your life. And I thought, as you were talking about fulfilling the measure of your creation, you know, like, we're not one-dimensional human beings, and we were put here with a purpose, and our purpose looks different. Everybody's purpose looks different, but one of the most important things that I've discovered in my years of being single and just researching relationships and how to show up better and better for my kids and stuff like that is this concept of being independently strong together. So me and whoever else it is I'm with, whether it's my kids, because I want my kids to be independently strong, or a future spouse or whatever it is, we need to be independently strong together, because that is what creates the equal yokes. That is where you are living your purpose. You are fulfilling the measure of your creation, and your spouse is also, or you're teaching your children to do the same thing. But it's this individual. So often I think as women, we get married and we kind of lose ourselves in motherhood. And I think part of that is just a natural thing. It really is. So don't beat yourself up about it, but we kind of get lost in everybody else's identity, and we forget to hone in who we are and strengthen who we are. And we forget that we're not raising our children for them to just go and have children and raise more children. Like, that's not I used to think that I had to work through this, because I had this kind of vicious cycle in my head is, well, what am I doing? Just raising kids for them to just go and raise more kids? Like, there's got to be more to it. Mm-hmm. And we're raising them to be who they were put here to do. And it's kind of amazing to me as I step back and look on my life, how I wasn't thinking about a lot of those things before. And they were kind of pushed into my space out of necessity, but how I've realized how necessary it is for everybody to do, not just single moms.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 1000%. Finding who you are and healing that sense of self-worth, and, like, knowing who you are, like, it just impacts everything that you do. It impacts your career. It impacts your space in the motherhood area. It impacts your relationships. It impacts everything. When you know who you are and you can take care of yourself, like, and by self-care, I am meaning, like, you are accountable to yourself. You are disciplined. Yeah. You do what you say you're going to do. You have good coping skills, right? You're, like, learning to going back to what you were saying, be that independently united aspect, being able to care so much for yourself that when you are in a relationship or whatever, like, you aren't so, like, relying on the other person to be your everything, that it's like crash when something goes wrong, like when they can't take care of you or whatever. Like, I keep thinking of that aspect of like the triangle, where it's like, okay, this is God, and the closer you are to God, the closer you are to your other relationship, whatever that may look like. And I don't remember who was talking about this. There was some guy that I follow, but he was talking about how, like, when we put our focus on Christ and we put our focus on God, everything else falls into its proper place. Everything. And we are more able to take care of ourselves because we aren't so focused on trying to get other people to take care of us, or seeking that external validation of other people needing to like what I have to offer, or other people needing to whatever. Here's the thing. When you just show up as you are wholly yourself, it gives people the opportunity to either love you as you are or to fall away and not be your people. And that's okay. Whereas if you show up in the space of like, okay, I got to act like this in order for this person to love me, and I got to fit this certain box, then they'll love me, or whatever. Like, how exhausting is that to live? And it isn't being true to yourself and who you are called to be. And it's just like, let all that go and show up as you are, and you will find the most amazing relationships show up because you are authentically yourself. And you're not burnt out, and you can take care of you. And it's just this beautiful, like, amazingness.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that in the context of like dating and like meeting new people this morning. And we were just laughing about how, you know, you get out of practice flirting, or you get out of practice, whatever it is. And I was just telling her about an interaction that I'd had. And I was like, I am such a dunce. Like, that was totally like, my response here was like, anyway, it was just funny. But where we came around to it, though, I was like, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
So that's what I said. And you just kind of let the chips fall where they may. And if it's dorky and dumb and they're not the person for me, then it's not that big of a deal. And if it's dorky and dumb and they are the person for me, then it will be fine. And they will see that, and it will actually grow the relationship. There was actually a podcast I was listening to, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, just a little clip, but the guy being interviewed was like a data analyst, and they were talking about relationships though. And he was talking about how much of a geek and a nerd he is. And he thought at one point he was trying to hide that a little bit, like hide his geekiness. But he said through looking at research and data and all that stuff, he was like, no, what I needed to do was I needed to lean into that. And I needed to just be my biggest, geekiest, whatever self that I was, because then what happens is you weed out automatically the people that aren't interested in being in a relationship with somebody that's super techie and does that for a living. Because there's going to be people that automatically go, yeah, I really like that kind of thing. And there's going to be other people that go, that's not who I am. That's not where I'm going. That's not what I'm about. And so it just kind of weeds it out. And that is when it opened him up to different relationships to come into his life, is by just owning his glorious geekiness. And it was just amazing.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And that doesn't make him wrong, right? Like, I think so often, especially as women, we're like, okay, I have to hide this aspect of like, I snort when I laugh, or whatever it is, right? Like these little things about ourselves that we're like, oh, like we think that is less desirable. But here's the thing. If you own that part of you and you love and accept that part of you, somebody who is going to love and cherish you will also love that about you. Yes. And whether they did or didn't, it doesn't make it wrong. Like, let's say somebody comes along and they're like, well, your techie, geeky side just isn't my thing. That doesn't mean that he should have changed his techie, geeky side. It just meant that was not the right person, and it doesn't make him wrong. It's like, you could be the juiciest peach in the world, and there will still be people out there who hate peaches. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. Yeah. It just means that, like, they're obviously not going to enjoy it. So why would you waste a second with somebody who doesn't fully appreciate who you are and enjoys that you're this amazing, juicy peach, right?
Yeah. Well, and then it makes it to where you are missing out on your strengths. There was another little video that I actually saw this morning that Russell Brunson put out, and he was talking about the differences between introverts and extroverts. And there was something else I saw earlier this week talking about brains with ADHD. And that one was like, people with ADHD just have Ferrari brains with bicycle brakes. And as soon as you learn how to work those bicycle brakes, you're going to go farther and faster than anybody else. So like when you figure because I hear a lot of people go, well, I'm introverted, and I have like those tendencies, right? There's times where I'm just like, I just don't want to people right now. And there's other times where I really do want to people. But if we take those things and label them good or bad, because there are things in this world that are good and there are good things in this world that are bad. But in what we're talking about right here, it's not on that wavelength. So you can really limit yourself if you're like, well, I'm introverted and so I can't do such and such. Yeah, you can. You just figure out how it works for you. Russell Brunson, his company is worth almost $1 billion right now. And he talks at the speed of lightning on stages all year long. And he is an introvert. He is an introvert doing an extra. I know. And he just said the other day, he was like, I am an introvert doing an extrovert's calling. But his why, what Brie was saying earlier, his why is so big and he believes in it so much, and he believes in it on a level of, he feels like God has called him to serve this certain group of people. And so that why is more powerful than the introvertedness. And he has learned to harness that introvertedness instead of letting it be a stopper for him. So, and Brie and I talk about ADHD all the time, where our brains are we definitely have ADHD. So, and I mean, I even had a brain scan and the guy was like, dude, you have ADHD 8 ways to Sunday. Let's work on this. But like, and so, but not using that as a crutch and using like learning going, how do I use that? Like, how does that serve me? So the more you get to know yourself and love those parts of you that maybe you think aren't lovable, they're only feeling not lovable because you don't love them about yourself. And as soon as you love them about yourself, you are going to automatically, without even trying, like a magnet, attract other little magnets that think that's adorable too. And the more you love yourself, the more and think your little quirks or whatever are adorable or whatever, other people are going to think the same thing.
Yes. Ooh, it just reminded me of something else too. When you unapologetically show up as yourself, who you are in your business, in your relationships, in all these different areas, you're just you. You unconsciously give other people in your space permission to do the same. Because have you ever noticed that? Like when other people show up and they show up their funny side, you're like, oh, I can show my funny side now. You get comfortable with that. You're like, I feel safe to do so. When other people show up and they're vulnerable and they're like, yo, look, I'm a hot freaking mess. And you're like, whoa, me too. Like, and it gives you that space to be like, oh, and it just reminds me of that scripture. Like, God doesn't want us to put our light under a bush. He wants us to shine bright. I think so often we have this weird connotation that it's prideful to show up in our most amazing self, and that like we must be full of pride if we're, wanting to dress amazing, or we're wanting to be this certain way, or we're showing up and we love being in the spotlight, or whatever it may be. Here's the thing. If we think that way, like our job and our purpose, I feel like should be to be so unapologetically ourselves that we give other people permission to do the same. And we also let other people see that light of Christ within us, because they're like, oh, there's something different about her. I like that. I want to be like, just be authentic, be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you're a single mom listening to this, or if you're a married person listening to this and you're going and you're thinking, maybe there's some things going on in my marriage that relate to this. Or if you're a single mom listening to this, you're going to waste a lot of time in the dating world if you're not showing up as yourself. And the reason why we're saying this is because we've done it. We've done it. Like, we have spent hours and hours and hours talking to each other going, Dude, why did I do that? Why did I, whatever? And like talking and healing things. And so the reason why we're saying this is because we know, and we've done so much talking and thinking about, so like our business ventures together, we talk all the time about how much it's like a relationship. And man, like this is really interesting because I wonder if this is what it's like to be married and deal with these things and like all these differences of like different timelines that we're on or whatever it is. So all you're going to do is waste time, but also give yourself permission to heal. Like if you are in a place where you have, life has kind of showed up in a way that has made you think that, that who you are isn't okay, then it's okay to heal slowly. But the important thing is, or it's okay to take the time to heal. The important thing is that you are doing it and that you do have time. You do have time to do it. What, like while you're washing dishes, while you're folding laundry, while your kid is taking a nap, while your kids are outside playing, while you're driving, like let your kids listen to things too. Like there is so much time available to you to be able to do things. And if your schedule is so full up that it's just from 6 to 9 o'clock at night, maybe something needs to shift. Because if you don't do these things, then you're not going to be prepared for war that comes to your door. Because our little mantra is plan for peace, prepare for war. Because storms come. And in reality, in our world, like when we have monsoon season where I'm at, it's a welcome thing. There's dangers associated with it, but we all get so excited about it because the rains come and it nourishes the land and the kids play in it and it's this amazing thing. So the storms are going to come, and if you go into it with that attitude of welcoming and being excited about it and running into the storm, and you're going to be excited if you're prepared. If you're not prepared, that's when things start to stack up. So you have one storm after another hit. And because you're not taking the time between those, and I'm making hand motions for those of you who aren't watching the video, but if you're not taking the time between the storms hitting to strengthen yourself, then that's when the storms hit and they're debilitating and you can't get up and move, because it's kind of like fuel in your car. If you don't put fuel in your car doesn't run. If you are not fueling yourself with the things that your soul needs and desires, and I believe that our souls talk to us. I believe that we were put here to fulfill the measures of our creations and not just live small. So if you're not fueling your soul, then whenever those storms hit, they're going to feel impossible. And they're going to hit you so much harder than they do maybe somebody right next to you who has been preparing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Ooh. And what better way to prepare than first strengthening your relationship with yourself and with God? Yeah. Being in this space of, can I hear God's voice? Am I open to inspiration? Can I start to here's the thing. You will burn out if you do not prepare time for yourself every single day to take care of yourself. I'm not talking about self-care like bath bombs and chocolate. I'm talking about radical self-care, which is like, I am moving my body. I am doing personal development on some level. I am staying consistent and disciplined in what I said I'm going to do. One of the best ways that me and Mary have been working and teaching our clients and things like that is look at your goals in these different areas of your life. What are your goals? And then not backpedaling, but reverse engineering it and figuring out, what do I need to do on every single day to make sure that I hit those goals? What are the little tiny things that I need to make sure happen to make sure I'm being taken care of in all these different areas? Because then you know that you're going to get there because you're doing it every single day, and you make it a non-negotiable. This has to happen every single day. It doesn't matter how I feel. If I didn't get to bed, if I get in bed and I said I committed to working out or whatever, I'm going to still go work out. That's part of growing your mental toughness. That's part of deciding I'm not going to do this. Because I think so often we see in our society, we're like, oh, we commit to a goal. We get all so excited about it, whatever. Then a week or two gets in and you're like, I don't know if I really want to do this again. And then you let your emotions get in the way and then you never finish it. And then we wonder why nothing ever works. No, it's because you didn't stay consistent. Everything can work, but you have to stay consistent. And yeah, there's times where you get sick and you can't do your workout. But does that mean that you stay down for 4 months now because, oh shoot, I messed up? No, you got to change the mentality. I'm getting up. I'm doing it. I'm doing the dang thing.
Yeah, because you've made it a part of who you are. So we've ended up talking a lot about identity. We had some other things we were going to talk about, but this is kind of where it ended up going. We, like, you've made it a part of your identity. I take care of my body. Yep. I show up this way for my kids. I show up this way in my relationship with God. This is who I am. So it doesn't matter that I got sick this week and knew that my body needed a different kind of care this week. And so I didn't work out, but I know that working out is who I am. It's part of who I am. So as soon as my body is ready, I'm going to start out again. And sometimes that means you're starting out a little bit different than where you were at before. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know about you guys, but when you're out sick for a week or two, your stamina just like plummets. It's so funny how it does that. And it takes you months to build up to it, but then by golly, it plummets. But if you get right back into it after that week or two of being sick, that first week or two being back, you might feel kind of funny and groggy and not as on top of things as you were. But after that week or two mark, you're going to be right back where you are. And you are going to be making the same gains at the same rate that you were before. So trust the process and take the time to figure out what works for you. I just had this big epiphany this week about business structure that I need and want and desire in order to fulfill the things that I want. And in order to show up like a mom when I want to show up like a mom and show up in my business when I want to show up in business, I just had, and I've been working for it though, you guys. It's been on my mind. I've been journaling. I've been saying prayers. I've been listening to classes. I've been talking to friends. And then all of a sudden it kind of came together. And it kind of came together in this way that I was like, oh my gosh, I can fit this structure and this pattern and this principle into any part of business that I want to. But it took work to get there. Just like that schedule this summer, it took work to get there. And it took interruptions and all of those things. But because it was important to me to figure out what works for me and what kind of flow works for me and what kind of, like, when does it, because exercise is a non-negotiable for me. So when does it work the best for me to exercise? And here's another little thing. And the reason why I'm saying this, guys, is because I don't want you guys to go, I'm a perfectionist and so I can't do it. And if it's all or nothing, like all or nothing mentality is crap. It does not work. Drop it right now. So when I had switched this thing in my mind where I was like, I want to go for a walk every day. I was exercising and lifting weights and doing things there and even kind of walking on the treadmill. But I was like, I need a time during the day where I get outside and I go for a walk. And when I finally worked past some of the funny little blocks I had right there, what ended up happening was I kind of put down the weightlifting for a minute. Because there was a part of me that realized I can't carry all of this at once right now. So I put down weight. I did some weightlifting at home, but I wasn't doing the same kind of lifting and stuff at the gym that I was doing before. But because weightlifting is part of my identity, that is who I am, that is what I do, that is a non-negotiable, I 100% know that is coming back into my reality. In fact, today is the day where I'm like, hey, I've got the walking figured out and I've got it figured out how I can implement that in my day to make it work. Today, going to the gym and doing the weights is coming right back in. And so sometimes we have to work on one thing at a time. But a rising tide lifts all boats. So if you're working on one thing, you're not really just working on one thing. That is going to improve every area of your life. If you're working on being consistent and disciplined and showing up for yourself, that is going to translate into relationships. Whether you're married or you're dating, it's going to translate.
So glad that you said that. I was going to say one of the most amazing things that I noticed happened was when I worked on myself and my body, everything else started improving. Everything. Like it just was like you were saying, that tide rising, it lifts all the boat. It's so true. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, when you have the energy, if you don't have the energy because you're out of shape, and because this is what happens with me when I'm out of shape and I'm not taking care of my body, then I feel poorly about myself. My self-esteem takes a hit. You start to question self-worth, which you don't need to be questioning your self-worth because your worth is inherent. But when you're not taking care of your body, all of those things kind of slowly puddle down. And it's harder for me to get up and play with my kids. It's harder for me to show up fully as myself. But if I'm taking care of my body, and it doesn't matter if my body is at whatever my goals are yet, if I am showing up and putting in the work every day, it automatically makes me feel stronger and more powerful to show up in any area of my life.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Same. Amen.
All right. Any other thoughts before we sign off here?
Yeah.
What are the other things that we were even talking about?
I know. It was like this was what we were meant to talk about today. This was not even on the roster.
On the list?
Yeah.
Nope. I don't even remember. So apparently they weren't the things. So you guys, let us know in the comments there on Spotify or on Anchor. Let us know what you think. Let us know what insights and ahas you had. Let us know what topics you'd love for us to like visit in. And I know there's going to be some times where we come in with some crazy kid stories, but we also want this podcast to be educational and empowering, and we want it to give you tools to be able to help you live the life that you want to live, the life that you are meant to live, and you have to do things to get there. So we hope that it fulfills that purpose too. But like us, follow us on Spotify, leave us comments, leave a rating and review. Let us know what you think. And we will see you next week, unless you have anything else that you want to say in there, Bree.
Nope, that was it. Amen. Again, we really
All
appreciate
right.
you guys showing up, and thank you for being here. So we love you guys.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Okay.